Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture and I'm Rausan Pereira. The photograph on social media of a hard-working lady cop discharging her duties with her infant daughter not merely won her appreciation but also made the police brass sit up and promptly transfer the woman to the district of her choice. Like any other day, Archana Jayant was present along with her 6-month-old daughter Anika in the police station in Uttar Pradesh's Jhansi district, but was clicked by someone and her picture went viral on social media last week. The Deputy Inspector General of Police applauded the dedication of Archana, who also has a 10-year-old daughter. The plight of scores of other working mothers is no different from Archana's. Lack of proper infrastructure means mothers have to suffer to be breadwinners or support their families. Several other mothers give up on their careers and lifestyle due to lack of adequate facilities. Those in the unorganized sector, however, don't even have that option. Their plight is far worse. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the challenges of working mothers and how to overcome them. Joining me on the program today are Dr. Vikram Singh, former DGP Uttar Pradesh, Yogita Bhayana, activist, and also with us is Shankar Aggrawal, former Secretary, Ministry of Women and Child Development. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Yogita, I'd like to start the program with you. Let's try and put into perspective what are some of the biggest challenges really as far as working mothers are concerned.
See, first of all, there is the biggest challenge to work as a woman in this country. And then when you are a mother, acting mother, then it adds to your challenges, and definitely lack of infrastructure, not only in physical infrastructure, I would say the sensitivity across the country, across the companies, across government, to have the kind of sensitivity which a lacting mother or any other mother who's working mother would need, the sensibility to handle her with care, or maybe time to approach her with kind of needs she has, or maybe give her flexible working hours. You are judged too much. Basically, that is another big challenge. So either you are just, you are given sympathy. Okay, you are a mother, so you take a break. Okay, sit at home and come back after a gap. Then when she comes back after a gap of few years or few months, then she doesn't get the job she deserves to be in. So she struggles there as well. So there are many challenges. So, but I'm glad that the dialogue has started. We were talking about Me Too. Definitely, it was another need. This has a greater need. This dialogue has started. I'm so happy, at least this lady, so all credit goes to her, and we are talking about it because it was much needed topic to be discussed on, and thanks to the media channels which are raising it.
Dr. Vikram Singh, the lady behind me, this is who she is, Archana Jayant, marvelous character really. She's got the kind of appreciation that she requires from social media. But what about the police brass and the others? I mean, why wasn't her situation, her condition analyzed earlier? Why did it have to come down to social media for the police brass, top brass, to take this decision that they have taken now?
Frank, good evening. I would like to bring about the fact that there is a similarity between Archana and Jhansi Ki Rani. Jhansi Ki Rani rode with her infant into battle in the 1857 conflict with the Britishers, and Archana has brought about a change. I salute Archana for that. You may realize, Frank, that the police subculture has a subculture of masculinity. What Yogita has said, you can feel the pathos and the anguish in Yogita's statements that yes, the infrastructure is not ready. Our mindset is not ready. A police station and a police lines till about 25 years ago were out of bounds for ladies and also for infants. But today, we constitute, most of the legendary police officers are not today ladies. And to say that the ladies cannot bring in the children would be a disservice to nature, would be a disservice and a disobedience of law. We have law in position. But yes, that the subculture has to break. The ecosystem has to improve. What nature mandates, what the law permits, the police department and the leadership will jolly well enforce, not only enforce, but facilitate also. But the subculture of masculinity that has percolated and has permeated the DNA of the police department for the last 150 years, it might take a little time before better sense prevails over the leadership. I must compliment O.P. Singh, the DGP of Uttar Pradesh, for not only facilitating this, but ensuring that crèches come about in every police station of Uttar Pradesh, and that is one innovation of which I am proud of the UP police and the DGP. Yes, there is a lot to be done. There is a lot to cure the masculinity, the cult of masculinity that prevails in the police system. But a good beginning has been made, and I'm sure that in course of time, working women who in times to come would be 30% of the police force or even more would not be inhibited by the absence of creches or the absence of infrastructure to hold the young ones in police stations or their workplaces.
Right. You know, Mr. Aggrawal, we've reached a stage now where we're talking about, you know, women equality. We are talking about more women entering the workforce. We're talking about, you know, providing the kind of infrastructure, the kind of facilities that they require. How far have we come really as far as that milestone is concerned?
I must admit that most of the establishments in this country do not provide adequate and safe working environment, including the physical infrastructure for women workers, and especially for the working mothers. When I was Secretary Labour, we tried to bring in a change in the Act, and we said that every establishment which is engaging more than 10 women must have a creche, and they must have the good washroom facilities for the women, which are safe, neat, clean and efficient. In addition to that, we introduced an amendment in the Maternity Act also, and as you must be knowing, today all women in this country who are working are entitled to avail the facility of 26 weeks of maternity leave, so that they can take care of their young child. And not only this, we are encouraging women to take advantage of this situation and to join the workforce, and wherever possible through the Act, we must ensure that the women are assured of certain decent level of infrastructure, physical infrastructure. Right.
We'll talk about infrastructure in just a bit, but before that, let me introduce Aditi Tandon, a journalist with the Tribune and a working mother on the program right now. Aditi, you know, Mr. Aggrawal was talking about acts. We have several acts in the past that have mandated that creches, you know, are mandatory. You have the Factories Act, the Mines Act, the Plantations Labour Act, you have the MG Narega, and then of course the most recent one, the Maternity Benefit Act. Despite that, you look at it, several organizations, 100 strong, 1,000 strong, but you know, it doesn't matter whether it's an organization that has 10 employees or an organization that has 10,000 employees. There are no creches, there are no facilities. What seems to be the problem?
I'll start with a disclaimer, Frank. I'm not a working mother, but I still can speak for working mothers. I'm a working woman, but I have many working mothers in my family, my sister, you know, a lot of my extended family, cousins. So I can speak for them. You're right that a lot of institutions do not have these creches. The government can only go this far and no further. Look at any law. For instance, we've recently had this whole Me Too movement where the whole focus was on sexual harassment at workplace. Again, there is a law which says any institution more than 10 people, you know, more than 10 employees have to have internal complaints committees. But if you go to the ground and conduct a survey, like the former secretary was just saying, there are no mechanisms on the ground. The problem really is with this attitude that, you know, this whole inertia around challenges of women. Frank, I really feel that women these days, working women have assumed so much capability, so much power within themselves that they seem to manage everything despite these, you know, tremendous odds. You look at this photograph, how powerful it is. You know, the woman has had problems at home. She's just brought her baby to workplace. And thanks to social media, the picture has gone viral and then everything has followed. Why? The law is already there. Why did it take a viral social media post for the DGP of Uttar Pradesh to provide for creches or even to talk about creches? The government has created mechanisms. I mean, why do we need triggers as a society to keep waking up all the time? And then again, you know, this whole matter is going to die down after a week. We'll again sleep over it. Then some social media post will again wake us up. I think we as a society are in deep slumber on these issues, you know, concerning women. I think it's time that we started talking about equal partnerships. At home, a working mother can still achieve equal partnerships with her husband. You know, there can be working arrangements. You do this, I'll do that. But what does she do when she leaves the confines of her home and goes to a workplace? You can't negotiate from a position of weakness, Frank. You know, you can't tell your boss that you need a crutch. You really need an organized setup Either every woman who's working in the country comes together, forms, you know, a few NGOs, pressure groups. Everything in the country seems to happen only
but is that
when there's
possible?
pressure
It's not
group.
possible at the end of the day, because there are several
Absolutely.
women who need that job, and you know they're worried that they might lose their job if they raise their
And
voice.
just a quick point, I'll just wind up on that. 5 to 6% is the organized sector.
Right.
What are you talking about? You know, these are organized spaces where we still have some form of empowerment. What about millions of unorganized women workers?
Yeah, that's what I wanted
You
to
know,
come to. That's what I wanted to come to.
Picking up bricks, working in construction sites, building us homes, and we are not thinking about them.
That's the image on this side. You know, a woman, a
Yeah,
laborer, in
see-
fact, you know, carrying her child and picking up bricks at the end of the day. Yogita, what about the unorganized sector? Really, the organized sector itself has so many issues. How do we sort those out and then get to the unorganized sector?
Completely, I echo what she said. And unorganized sectors, we are talking about women, 10 women working in plus 10, the Sexual Harassment Act is also implemented there. But I have personally been conducting this survey on in unorganized sector, and you know exactly the picture what you see. I've been going and meeting them, talking to them about even sexual harassment at workplace. They don't even know where to go. I mean, they can go to a SDM office or a district complaint committee, but they don't know. So, you know, it is a biggest challenge to reach out to them, to tell them, you know, the facility is available for you, or we will assure you a facility, because they learn to live with it and we also take them for granted. So, government has to really put, you know, kind of, they need to focus more on unorganized sector, and then definitely we are empowered enough to kind of demand for ourselves. There also we lack, but still, you know, it needs more attention. And I want to go one step further, what she said. Yes, equal partnership, very important point. Why? Okay, I can understand about electing mother, but what about the working father? Why can't he demand a creche, and why can't he take the children?
Yeah, absolutely.
There?
Why
so
not?
we want to go one step further. We want even father to demand this. So it is for the parent to demand the creche, not only mother. It is not only mother's duty to raise the child. We have to go beyond this thinking also, other than the electing one. So we can.
No, it makes a big difference, because we here at Rajya Sabha TV have a creche.
Wow.
The mothers are very happy coming here and working here, just not because of anything else, but for the fact that they know that their child is safe and their child is close to them.
Frank,
so that
again,
makes a big difference at the end of the day, and I've seen it with my own colleagues. Let me take the discussion forward now. You know, another aspect, Dr. Singh, that has been raised by Yogita is the issue of sexual harassment, really, as far as the unorganized sector is concerned. You know, how should that be tackled? What is the best way forward, really, as far as that problem is concerned?
Lest I shock everybody's sensibilities, sexual predators are now roaming about absolutely without any fear of rule of law or of any system or checks against them. Sexual predation is almost like an epidemic, and we have done precious little to contain these predators. In Me Too, we had honorable politicians saying that where is the need to go in for an inquiry after 15 years, 20 years, when the law mandates that one can inquiry and a complaint can be made at any point of time. I see no reason for the frivolous defense of the predators. I dare say that perhaps you have skeletons in your own cupboards. That is why you are so scared lest the flood waters reach you and reach you to your nose. I would say that sensitization, no nonsense approach, and the onus of proof should be on the accused and not on the complainant. I, in my university, have ensured that there is a policy of zero touch. We have 70% girl students, 70% faculty are ladies, but we have a policy of zero touch. If there is a complaint, the predator is first asked to go, prove his innocence, and then only he is allowed to enter the university, otherwise not. The onus of proof till the time it is on the complainant, I think it will be an uphill task. In selective cases, one can go for an FIR also. FIR not only against those who have committed a misdemeanor, but also against those organizations and institutions who have not institutionalized the mandates of what is requirement of law to have a regular redressal committee.
Dr. Singh, sorry
those
to
who should
interrupt.
inquire and take them to task. But if this is not in position, I think they are criminally and otherwise liable also to explain to the government and the organization.
You know, sorry to interrupt. You're talking about an FIR. You know, what happens when the police personnel, the SHO who's sitting down there in that police station does not even entertain you, does not even look towards filing an FIR?
Frank, I have never felt helpless. I am no longer in the police. I retired 8 years ago. But make no mistake about it. You write to the SHO, write to the DIG, write to the IG, write to the DGP, and write to the CM. And lo and behold, yes, in 50% of the cases, FIR will not be lodged by the SHO. But my word of advice to everyone is, make it move right up to the Chief Minister and see if they don't lodge an FIR. There is a % success when you make a complaint and mark copies to the DGP, the DIG, the Home Secretary and the Chief Minister. It's almost 100%.
Okay, so that is the process to be followed, is what the former DGP is suggesting, and hopefully that will work. You know, Mr. Aggrawal, what more really needs to be done so as to ensure our workplaces are more women-friendly, more mother-friendly?
The first is you got to have a very robust and effective policy framework. That means a legal framework plus a policy framework. And these need not be static in nature. These have to be dynamic in nature. And as time progresses, as per the felt need, we got to make changes, amendments in the act and the policy. Secondly, that we got to make people aware, so that women are aware of their rights and they should be able to raise their voices. We got to create an implementing mechanism which is simple to implement and which is effective, so that people can take advantage of that implementation machinery. And the third, we got to empower the civil society. Unless the civil societies are empowered and they take up these causes, it will be rather difficult to implement these policies and the legal framework in letter and in spirit. So this now today, because of the social media, things have become simpler and easier for the civil society. And once we do that, things are bound to improve, and there is no doubt that things have improved tremendously in last 30, 40, 50 years. There is no doubt about it. But a lot has to be achieved, and that can be achieved only when the civil society, when the government, and that means the policy framework and the legal framework and the implementation agency, all these three agencies are coming together. And finally, the judiciary. If somebody goes to the court, it must be decided in time bound manner, maybe like 7 days or 15 days or a month or 2 months or whatever we decide. But that must be decided within that time frame.
With the kind of pendency of cases that we have at the moment, I think that is a far cry and a dream.
It's
really.
not a question of pendency of cases. If there is a will, we can always find out ways and means of achieving these objectives.
I hope that happens sooner rather than later, really, and I hope it does eventually happen. But, you know, Aditi, the government, of course, is the biggest employer, really, if you look at it. And does it have the funds, really, to have this kind of infrastructure, this kind of facilities, you know, within the government infrastructure itself?
You know, one of the early and better creches that came up in Delhi in the government sector was the one that came up in Press Information Bureau office at Shastri Bhavan. It came up, you know, in a small complex, but there's so many women working in Shastri Bhavan. You know, it houses so many ministries. I think about 15, 17 ministries it houses. It's a beautiful crèche. So the government can step in for the government sector, Frank. You cannot expect the government to, you know, come in and support entire sectors. But what I do feel as a working journalist, and maybe, you know, someday a mother later, is that the government can subsidize the building of creches across the country. That's something the government can do, because, you know, there's these all kinds of government schemes going around. If you look at the Western countries, which have evolved in these sectors and spheres much faster and much better than we have done, you will find there are all-night creches, Frank. So, you know, there are people, there are women who are working in the acting industry, in the entertainment industry. Some women are models. They can easily leave their children in these creches. These are 24/7 all-night day creches. In India, you still do not have an all-night creche. I'm yet to see one. So this is one sector where there's tremendous potential, you know, for people to pitch in. Like civil society could perhaps come into this sector, because ultimately what is the solution? The solution lies in building support mechanisms, support structures.
Yeah.
We cannot forget the fact that we are in a world where increasing number of nuclear families are coming up. Inside homes, there are no support networks. A classic example which you know, mirrors the problems of a working mother is this new film, Tumhari Sulu. you know, it encapsulates the problems which the protagonist Vidya Balan faces because she decides to become a radio jockey and she decides to do a night show. Her child starts, starts posting bad grades at school. So just because she is going for a night shift, when her child is actually asleep and she doesn't have to spend time with the child, she is made to, you know, suffer for that. She is made to feel guilty about the fact that, oh, see, you are leaving your child in the night and you are not paying attention to him. And the whole, see, the social upbringing, look at our social upbringing, Frank. The moment we are born, what are we told? What is the purpose of marriage? A lot of, let me tell you, a lot of bureaucrat friends I have tell me that the purpose of marriage primarily is procreation. So it has a lot to do with our mindsets, with our social upbringing, with the way our families are structured. Ultimately, what happens, this complex cocktail of family pressure and social pressure ensures that a working woman, when she becomes a working mother, she leaves her job. There was a fascinating survey done in Delhi about 2 years ago which told us that only 18 to 20% of women who become mothers continue with their jobs. So they do leave their jobs because there's so much this element of guilt. So you can't outsource everything to the government. This is your responsibility also. Like Mr. Aggrawal said, the civil society has a huge role.
Right.
Let pressure group civil societies come up and create support mechanisms, crutches to start with.
Right.
You know.
Yogita, the change in mindset is what we require, is what Aditi is suggesting. Your closing comments on the program on the best way forward really to deal with this issue. How do we overcome these challenges?
Absolutely, I completely agree that mindset has to change because you are made to feel guilty, because you are made to feel that you are ignoring your child. I have so many working friends, they always, they are guilt conscious that they have left their children and they are working, and they always tell me that, it's this feeling has to go first of all. And who will help in? As society, we have to help each other, have to uplift each other, and especially men have more responsibility to uplift such women and make them feel comfortable. And as you said, you have in Rajya Sabha channel, you have a creche. I would urge, even as fathers, you should bring your children so that your women can work
my
wherever.
son loves to come to office.
So
It's his favorite place to be. In fact, I bring him all the time.
Yes, so that is that will bring about a lot of change, and definitely infrastructure is needed. So both have to go all together. Otherwise, one solution cannot help it. So we have to have a mindset change, and we have to have proper infrastructure in place as compliance. As proper implemented compliance, not something like Sexual Harassment Act, which is not in place anywhere. So we want a compliance which is definitely implemented. So these are the two things I would say.
Dr. Singh, I want to go back to a point that Aditi was talking about, a study where she said that not many people, not many women, once who become mothers, don't really continue and further their careers. There is a World Bank study also which suggests that, female labor force participation has been declining since 2004 in comparison to other developing countries as far as India is concerned. How do we reverse that trend really? What needs to be done?
This is a tragedy that was totally avoidable, Frank. In the first place, the adverse impact that would have on the GDP and national economy is clear to everyone. Now, what we can do, that the nation, society, and everybody needs to realize that our children and our kids are sacred, and it's everybody's business to ensure that they are safe both at home and at the workplace through creches. Now, to facilitate it, not just what the law mandates, that they should be airy, they should be comfortable, they should be properly well ventilated, that is about all, but they should be safe. And that the visit, as Yogita probably had mentioned, that the visits of the fathers still not allowed. The mothers can visit, but the fathers, if I am not mistaken, are still not allowed to visit the creches. That needs to be done. If at the workplace is as safe and secure as the home, then there is no difference between the home and the workplace. I think we would have made a good beginning if we are able to do that much. The police have a major role to play wherever things are not in position, and if a case is brought out. I know a success story where each case of every district, one important case, was given to the fast track court and conviction ensured in 1 month. That has a salutary and a lasting impact. I am sure this is an experiment worth replicating everywhere.
Right. Mr. Aggrawal, do you believe that we have the laws at the end of the day? Better implementation really as far as the laws are concerned will go a long way?
Absolutely, there is no doubt. But when we create law, we are more bothered about the law rather than its implementation. And no law will get implemented unless it is simple and unless it is citizen centric. Unfortunately, most of our laws are not very citizen centric. We do not look into the comfort level of the citizen, whether it is a woman or a mother or a working lady or a gentleman, whosoever it is. So, that has to change. Coming to that question which you were asking a little earlier about the World Bank study, and we looked into that as the Secretary Labour. In this country, the percentage of working women is going down, not because of anything else, but because of the prosperity. Earlier, a whole lot of women were working in fields and construction workers because they were extremely poor. But with the rising prosperity, women are not finding it attractive, or they do not find a need to work for these kind of jobs. So, what needs to be done? We got to create jobs which are relatively of higher level. We got to literate them, we got to educate them properly. Respectable jobs.
Yes,
absolutely.
okay.
So, unless we are able to create respectable jobs for women, women will not join the workforce. And for that,
and
we got
rightly
to
so.
create.
And rightly so.
Absolutely, absolutely. That has to be done.
Yeah. Aditi, Tandon, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
My closing comments would be that it's high time the women stop feeling guilty about living their lives. You know, they must realize that they owe a life to themselves also. Of course, you know, they have to give love by their very nature, by their very constitution. They are caregivers. But the point is, there's no sense in carrying this whole guilt around not paying attention to children, not paying attention to a family member. So a woman has to feel completely empowered and self-assured within herself that, you know, the first thing is you stop feeling guilty about what you do. If you've decided that you're going to raise a child, give him good values and also work and be the best worker at workplace, I'm sure there's a way you can do it. And of course, support structures are welcome, and we can only hope that the future will be better than the past.
Absolutely.
And maybe you can offer us some jobs at Rajya Sabha TV.
All right. On that note, then we'll call it a wrap with this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. Hope that the future is bright and the future is better than the past. On that note, I'll call it a wrap. See you again next time.